Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are delighted to present two contemporary fiction authors today. They're going to let us into a little chat that they're talking about their books that they've published with Revell Books, part of Baker Publishing Group. We are delighted to have you join us. And Robin Jones Gunn is the best-selling author of many, many releases over the years. And we are really excited to be starting a new series with her here at Revell. And then Kit Tosello is a debut fiction author. So we get to launch her first title, and we are going to let the two of these wonderful authors take it from here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so
Good
glad
morning,
you
Robin.
reached out. And it's really fun for Kit and I because we're actually friends and we've worked on some projects together we're going to tell you about. And so I'm really grateful that both of us get to say hello. Kit has a tea shop. I want to start with that because she and her husband in Sisters, Oregon run a tea shop, and it's called Subtle Tea. So we partnered together. My new book is called Tea with Elephants. And so I called her and said, we have to have tea to go with the Tea with Elephants. And when I researched the book and I was in Kenya, a Kenyan friend of mine was showing me how to make masala chai. So Kit came up with the recipe, and we now readers can go to Subtle Tea and get their masala chai to sip while they read Tea with Elephants. So this is a good partnership all the way around.
It's a perfect pairing. It really is, the book and the tea. And I got to tell you, we had at the tea shop, we have quite a few chais already, but we didn't have them. We didn't have a masala, so it has a completely different flavor profile from the others. It's more soothing. It's just perfect for a book. It's very cozy.
Yes, yes. So, Kit, let's talk about your book because it just came out last month, The Color of Home. And what I loved about it when I read it for an endorsement, so I got to see it ahead of time, was that I felt like, and I've been to Sisters, Oregon a number of times, and it felt familiar, and yet in that kind of dreamy way, like, don't we all wish that we could go to a little town like this? And the characters were just so memorable. But what I loved the most was your ability for such lush descriptions, and really, really made me feel like I was there. So debut novel, and that was it. I can't wait to see what's next. Well done, you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you. Yeah, the setting is very much a big part of the inspiration for the story, and my own move from a more urban area in California to this small town 20 years ago. I just I really hope my affection for the place and the people and the little bit slower pace of life and really comes through. But it was also important to me that I wasn't painting this, airbrushed idea of what even a quaint town in the mountains with the pine trees and everything smells like Christmas all the time. It was important to me that it had depth and that we were showing the reality that there are still hurting people in these small towns and little ways that we can make a difference.
Well, you pulled that off as well.
Thank you.
Kind of I don't know. I think with writing, it's sort of there's that voice that you find as an author, and you definitely have found your voice. And I keep hearing with Tea with Elephants that readers who have read my books for many years, and it's been about 4 years since I've had a novel come out. I've had other projects and some nonfiction books, but for those readers to say, oh, I hear your voice, like this story about friendships and the conversations between these women is something that is consistent pretty much through everything I write, I guess. I mean, it just feels natural to me that's I love to write about that, but that to take this beautiful, beautiful destination of Africa and take two young women. They're almost 40 years old, and they are gifted this safari, and off they go to Kenya. And I I loved being able to take them out of their everyday lives, put them in a uncomfortable, unfamiliar situation, and then just see what kind of rises to the top. So yeah, you have readers who are going to be loyal through everything you write. And you had written before this, but your being your first novel, you'll have a different sort of following, I'm sure.
Well, you have certainly accomplished what you were hoping to accomplish with the voice. Your writing in this book feels very familiar to me, and just comforting and welcoming, and your setting is transporting, Robin. I absolutely have never, and my husband's been to Uganda a couple of times. I have never wanted so badly to visit Africa. So you really paint that setting, and just that intersection of these two women that are out of their element, which is where often interesting things can happen, because we're standing back. It's similar to what's happening in my story. We're standing back from our norm and our everyday norms, and we're able to kind of get a wider perspective on what's important to us, maybe where we are stuck. It happens to us.
Yes, it's kind of like real life, but kind of gentle, so you don't feel like it's being right. Oh no, she's watching me in my life. She knows what's going on. Well, I think that the readers have been always so important. And I started writing novels for teens. I've written some children's books when our kids were little, and then I started the Christy Miller series. And 10 different publishers rejected the first book, and I just knew that these girls that were in our youth group really wanted these kinds of stories. And so I just kept going. And when the first book came out, I started to receive letters. And this is back when they were handwritten letters on the cute little stationery with daisies in the corner, and it was also that era when you ended up with way too many school photos, the little wallet size. So all these girls would send me, just tucked in their envelope, their little school picture. And I loved it because I bought a bulletin board and I put it up on the wall in my little office where I wrote, and I just did this collage of all these school pictures of all these readers. And every time I would sit down to write, I would look at them. And in my mind, I would say, I would like to tell you a story, and then start writing. But just that sense of, I would remember as I would look at them, the real life situations that they had written about to me in their letters. They, well, just like this character in your book, I'm also going through this. So I felt like I could write about the things that were important to the readers, because I felt like I had that little connection with them. So anyways, that's a really sweet full circle for the readers to be saying now, years later, with Tea with Elephants. This is the first book in the Suitcase Sisters collection, and they're already saying, when's the next book? I want to go on another adventure with these characters.
Well, that's really something for me to pay attention to as a newer author. Your love for your readers comes through in your writing, and I want that too. You've absolutely accomplished that, and you inspire me so much, Robin. You have for years. There's some Robin Gunn in my book somewhere. It's in there because it's in me.
I love it. I love it. So I know you have an affection for libraries from early on.
Yes. Well, that's true. When I think of libraries, I have a couple of scenarios that come up. I remember being maybe 10 years old, and it was the first place. We lived in this small town, kind of in the country at that time, and my parents would let me ride my bike most of a mile to this small, funky little country library. And the librarian was just like, looked for me and looked for books that I just, the sound of the cover, the casing, the plastic casing, when she would pull out a book that she thought I would like. That's just a heartwarming association that I have with libraries still when I go in. Sometimes I just go into the library just for a sense of peace and um, grounding. But another thing, also when I was a child, my mother took me to a library in Monterey, California, when Ezra Jack Keats was coming out. I think he was probably on a book tour. I was too young to understand the whole thing, but Ezra Jack Keats, of course, wrote Peter's Chair and The Snowy Day, and I just, those illustrations and the text, that was yeah, that was my jam as a kid. And my mom took me to the library when he was doing a visit, and there was something about it that just really awoken the magic of story, and the idea that there's a person behind these stories was something I was trying to comprehend. It was a little too big for me at the time, and the dream for that reason continued to stay kind of too big of a dream to even verbalize to others or pursue. But it stayed with me. Yeah,
Well, I know when you and I first met, you were just still thinking about writing a novel. It was still in the, I'm a little more than the dream stage, but I also know that you have been so blessed to have a writers group right in your hometown, and that there's other very wonderful, accomplished writers, and to have that kind of mentorship and the friendship is really a gift.
Yes. Yeah, we need that. We need that regularly and forever, I think. Yeah, I was a nonfiction writer before I was a fiction writer, so I kind of stayed in my lane for a long time, and I would attempt to step out of the lane and step into the challenge of writing fiction. But really, this is 15 years ago, what I realized was I needed to read a lot more. I needed to read stacks and stacks of fiction broadly, and that allowed it to become more instinctive to me so that I could find my voice.
I think that's, obviously we hear that a lot. That's so important, that writers need to read and be in that world and aware of what you learn so much just with about story structure by reading a really well structured story. But you know what had such an effect on me early on was listening to poetry. I bought every like the 50 top English poems of all time. I don't know what the titles were, but they were really, excuse me, really wonderful narrators of these audio. And I would listen over and over, and you just learn the cadence. You just learn to appreciate the English language, and someone who uses more words than we hear in everyday conversations in our lives now. And that had a really impactful effect of kind of the romance of writing and words and putting things together to just create a picture. And
I agree. I still do that, Robin. Sometimes I'll read a poem when I'm stuck in my writing. That'll kind of loosen up my creativity. I'll read a poem before I sit down to write. So I agree.
I should talk about my other romance thought of libraries. My mother doesn't even know this, but when I was 15, I had my first boyfriend, and we went to the library to work on a project together, and it was raining, and we had to call his mom so she could come pick us up when we were done with our project. And I was so Twitter-pated. I kind of knew he liked me and I really liked him, but I didn't know how to have a boyfriend. I was so young, right? But we had to get in a phone booth to call his mom, and it was raining, and so we both squeezed in this phone booth. That's how long ago it was. We had to go to the phone booth, and when we were in the phone booth, he called his mom, and I just sort of stood there. And then when he hung up, he turned and he kissed me. He kind of hit like right here. He didn't really aim well, but I was so surprised. Like that was my first kiss.
In a
Phone
library of
booth
all
in the
places.
library. Did anybody see? And it was just this like magical things happen at the library. So I think early on I had a deep affection. And then the other time that I really loved spending time in the library was when our son was in 3rd grade. We lived in Hawaii on the island of Maui for a year that time, and then we moved back later. But during that year when he was in 3rd grade, and on library day, or just, one day a week, I would help out in the classroom. And it was usually the library day. And there would be a story time for the 3rd graders. And I loved it. And what's so deeply special is that little old library in Lahaina was burnt down last year in the fires that swept through Lahaina. And I spent so much time going through the reference books on the shelf to learn more about the history of Hawaii. And I will always remember just those slat windows open and the ocean breeze. And if you look just right, you could probably see a whale breaching. You see the boats coming into harbor. It was just, library was right there by the harbor. And all these little impressional, sweet faces looking up at the woman reading the story to them. And I just thought, there's nothing better than books. There's just nothing more important than putting those stories in the imaginations of
Yeah.
youngsters. And so my love for books and libraries grew.
I bet somebody should put all that in a book, all the stories of just library experiences in different, environments and ages. And gosh,
I love that. Yeah, for the love of libraries. There we go.
We should do it, Robin.
Yeah, we have nothing
In our
else
free
to do.
time. I was going to say, I was thinking about your book and how it has a lot of value, I think, for book clubs, because you've got, the opportunity to discuss the value of friendships over time, and then just the kind of the looking inside that happens sometimes when we travel or we're taken out of our everyday circumstances. Yeah, not to mention you've got all kinds of fun goodies that you have for book club hostesses, but
Yes.
but yeah, there's a lot there to talk about.
So the book club box that we put together is available at robingunnshop.com. And there's also the download, it's just free download of all the discussion questions. But I think this is going to be a really good book for book clubs, because not only the travel and people who have traveled like to tell their stories, but just also the friendship, that's the focus of it. And I saw a little note pop up on the notes here of the kind of research that I did for Tea with Elephants was actually 2 different trips I took to Kenya. Both times I was invited to speak at International Writers Conference. So that was pretty great. Just meeting writers from around the world. And a lot of the things in the book, I got to experience, pretty much all of them, actually. Walking through the tea fields in Limuru, and I mean, yeah, tea fields are amazing because at least this one, it just went on the rolling hills, and you just have this sense of it being sort of a storybook place. It just was. I loved the tea fields. I probably went 6 times for walks. And then also feeding a giraffe out of the palm of my hand. That was pretty amazing. And touring the home of out of Africa, the setting, the house that was there, the Karen Blixen house. And then going on a safari, and the safari was set up by my Kenyan friend, and there were five of us all together that went. And we were laughing because none of us are really crazy about animals or are naturalists, but wow, just to be able to get in that Jeep and go out and see this amazing Masai Mara and all the animals was it really had a deep effect on all of us. But one of my favorite moments, and this is kind of where the idea for the book came, was Wambura took me to stay overnight at a hotel up in the treetops of Mount Kenya, and it's built in the treetops, so you're really high up. And where we stayed, they have a deck at the top, and you can look down, and there's a big watering hole. So at twilight, all the animals come to the watering hole. And Wambura and I went up because we heard they offered tea time at 4 o'clock. And we went up and we both had scarves in our suitcases. So we put our scarves on to be posh. There was no one else up there, but the server came with the towel over his arm and the silver teapot, and he poured cups of tea.
Oh my.
And we sat and had tea with the elephants. And that's where it was just started rolling around in my imagination. Wouldn't that be a fun title? And what would this book be about already on that trip? That was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, you've carried that inspiration around with you for a very long
yeah.
time. I see we've only got a couple minutes left, and someone asked what
Yes.
the romance trope in The Color of Home is. And if I was to, I guess the best way of describing it is that it's maybe from misunderstanding to understanding. There's the romance thread in The Color of Home isn't the primary focus, but it's one of the ways that the main character, that Audrey is learning to open her heart up to new possibilities. So yeah, they've got some things that they have to overcome throughout the story, but it isn't the central focus of the story, but it is a fun swoony thing that happens. Yeah.
Swoony, I love that. That's so good. Well, I think for both of us, there's desire and plans to keep writing. So we'll have more books coming, certainly with the Suitcase Sisters. But what about you, Kit? More ideas going around?
Yes, I am. I'm setting another story. I'm pretty close to finishing up a second story in the Charity Falls, the fictional town of Charity Falls, and it's been really fun to see readers saying that they hope that these will continue. So I have at least one more story in that setting. I've also got a novella that I'm working on that's kind of unrelated, but a similar genre, very similar. And I've got a couple of nonfiction projects that are essays that are coming out soon. So yeah, I'll keep setting. I think I will stick with whatever the setting. I will stick with, I love the multi-generational aspect of the story, and just the redemptive arc is really important to me, that readers can think about, can be a little introspective and think about true things, but also walk away with a sense of hope and possibility, new possibility.
We all need that in our world today, don't we?
We do.
And I love that you already know what your sort of theme is when you that's your heart, Kit. That's what's going to come through, and readers that love the first book are going to be able to know that that's what's coming in future books.
Thank you, Robin. You're always such an encouragement to me.
Well, I meet a lot of people that want to be writers, but then there's ones that I meet and I just know right away, like you already are a writer. You just have to work at it till you get to the finish line and actually can say, I have a published book. But I can see a difference right away, that there's just that. And it was in you that you were a writer. That's not going to go away. You better work on it. Otherwise you'll be 95 years old and go, I think I want to write a book. Well, you always had that in you.
Yeah. Well, I always walk away from something, from my interaction with you with something valuable that sticks with me. And for today, it's going to be that idea of just focusing on the reader and my affection for the reader and what I want them to experience, and just the affection. And I love that in you, Robin, and it really comes through in all of your stories.
Thank you, Kit. We didn't, hello, librarians, we really didn't plan to say how much we deeply care for each other, but it's just true.
And-
It's authentic,
yeah.
so it's going to come through.
Yeah.
But we're also readers, and we appreciate what libraries and librarians do. And with audiobooks, thank you, thank you, thank you. And with ebooks being available, it's
Yeah.
a gift in so many ways. And I love sending people to libraries when they say, well, I read your first book in the Christy Miller series, but I can't afford to buy go to your library.
Yeah.
They'll be
And
able
I adore knowing that, obviously with my love for libraries, that my book is in many libraries right now, but that it allows readers to be introduced to a new author, without, without having to make the commitment of a purchase. And I just love that myself about libraries when I want to try something new. So
well,
I'm
we're very grateful. Yeah, we're grateful for that. But also, I'll just say it's a privilege to be able to write with. We both are with Revell Publishers, and to be able to have a publishing house that really supports what we want to do. They come alongside and allow us to have that freedom to do that. It's the ideal combo.
yeah. Yeah. It's been a real partnership with the publisher, and I'm really, yeah,
And
it's
speaking of our publisher,
Not to hop on as we're being spoken about, but
voila.
I just wanted to say how much fun this has been today. You guys are so delightful. I feel like we were sitting down with a cup of chai and just yeah,
I'm
just
sure.
chatting. And what's fun about book people is that even if we're writers or librarians or publishers, we all are readers too. So it's fun to share that love with each other. And it was just great to hear the two of you talk about that. So yeah, I'm just going to wrap us up, and to all of everyone who joined us today, you can find both Kit and Robin online on their author websites or on your favorite social media. So do some searching and give them a follow or sign up for their newsletter, and you can hear more information on what they have coming down the road. So thank you so much to both of you for your time, and for all of our listeners to their time as well. And we'll wish you a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
What a joy.